So everyone keeps talking about the top 1%. The top 1% get away with taxes, and the top 1% don't pay enough taxes, and the top 1% have it easy and get away with everything. What is the reality about the top 1%, and how could you join the top 1% club? So if you want to live a life of luxury and comfort and have whatever you want in your life, there are mainly two ways to do it. One way is that you either increase your income and therefore your net worth and therefore level up your lifestyle. But if that doesn't work out, you could also move to another country which has a lower bar for this comfortable lifestyle, and you could live that same lifestyle that you dream of for the same amount of money that you have. So I'm going to tell you the threshold to be in the top 1% of 25 countries, and it's a very broad range, a lot broader than you might expect. And based on this range, you could choose your plan B if things don't work out where you are. And with this list, I'm going to actually start from the highest figure required to be in the top 1% and end at the lowest. At number 1, we have Monaco, which needs a net worth of 12.4 million US dollars to be considered in the top 1%. Now this is no surprise because Monaco is such a tiny country and like barely anyone lives there. It's mainly used as a tax haven, and it has a permanent residency and citizenship program which needs like €1 million invested in the country, where 500,000 would be in a bank account in Monaco and 500,000 would be spent on real estate in Monaco. And apart from that, you can literally like walk to France, where it's like much cheaper and stuff like that. Kind of people who would be actually like residents of Monaco are mainly people who are using it for tax purposes and have millions to invest in the country, and that's usually like a small percentage of their actual net worth. Number 2 is a similar situation, which is Switzerland. Beautiful country, known for its banks, privacy the banks offer, and the security and all this stuff. Their required net worth is $6.6 million to be in the top 1%. And even though Switzerland is like a similar idea to Monaco, it's still like half the required net worth. And this could be just because it's like a bigger country, it attracts like a larger variety of people, it has regular people here and there. In Monaco, you won't see anyone poor, like you'll just see like tourists, supercars. Switzerland is still a bigger country, it has some more expensive cities, but also some more regular cities, even though it is a pretty expensive country overall, which is why its required net worth to be in the top 1% is still pretty high compared to other countries, but it's still way less than Monaco because it's used as an actual country, not just a tax haven. And also a lot of people who have their money in Switzerland might not necessarily live there, but they could still have a bank account there depending on the amount and stuff like that. And by the way, before I continue, I know that all countries have a lot of wealthy people, maybe people richer than like Elon Musk or the top richest people in the world that we know of, but they just don't declare it, or they don't tell Forbes, or they don't tell anyone about it. But that's the case in, I would say, like all countries. So we're just gonna ignore that, like in case someone says that, oh, but this country actually has so many billionaires but no one knows about it. I'm just going by like publicly available data. Number 3, weirdly enough, is Australia at $5.5 million, followed by New Zealand at $5.2 million. Honestly, I don't know like how they're that high up in this list. And New Zealand just beats the US by 0.1 million. So the US needs $5.1 million to be in the top 1%. So if you're noticing, top 1% doesn't mean like multi-billionaires and stuff like that. Those people are like the top 0.0000001% or something like that. Like when people say top 1%, people just jump to like Elon Musk and whatever. But there's many people who are like upper middle class who would be considered and who are technically in the top 1%. But like no one would think of them as the top 1%. After the US is Ireland at 4.3 million. I'm confused about this as well. I don't know how Ireland is so high up. I never thought of Ireland as like a luxurious place full of rich people. And then Ireland is followed by Singapore at $3.5 million. Singapore makes sense. It's kind of a tax haven-ish kind of place. It is a country that is used by investors for tax purposes or for diversifying their wealth, like where they put their wealth and stuff like that. Singapore is tied with France at $3.5 million as well. Next up, we have Hong Kong at $3.4 million. Hong Kong is known to be like a wealthy place full of businessmen and stuff like that. And I believe it's also used for tax purposes sometimes, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have the UK at $3.3 million, which makes sense because of how expensive property is in the UK and the cost of living in general. And with the high minimum wages in the UK, you could imagine that it would not be cheap to have like a luxurious lifestyle. So if you want to employ like a butler and a maid and a cook and a driver, a chauffeur, whatever, stuff like this, it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be like really expensive compared to other countries. Then we have Italy at 2.6 million. Also pretty expensive real estate over there, except for like those islands on the south coast or something like that, which have some pretty affordable housing, but generally in like mainland Italy, it is a pretty expensive place. And then followed by Spain at $2.5 million. And then we have Japan at $1.7 million. I guess Japan is not as expensive as everyone says it is, because it's pretty low down. It's like in the middle of this list, sort of. It's cheaper than all these European countries and America and Australia and stuff like that. And Japan is at $1.7 million. Despite Tokyo being like the most expensive city in the world or something, or I don't know if it is anymore. And then we have the UAE at $1.6 million. And despite people thinking that the UAE is extremely unaffordable and extremely expensive because your favorite influencer is there in some penthouse with Lamborghinis, the UAE can actually be very affordable. It just depends what you do there and what you choose to do with your money. You could live on like a really low budget and you'd be like fairly comfortable in that kind of budget, or you could like ball out and go crazy, buy like mansions and supercars. The UAE actually offers both. Like you could go with any budget and you'll pretty much find a place there. And $1.6 million for being in the top 1% is not that high. Like I feel like that's not too crazy in like the US or something like that. In the US or the UK, in which there's people with more money than this who say that, oh, the UAE is so expensive. It's because they are looking at the expensive side of Dubai. Next is mainland China at $960,000. The top 1% of China, like China with its like 1 billion people, 1% of them being worth $1 million is a lot of millionaires. Like that is a lot of people. 1% of like 1.5 billion or whatever the population is, it's a lot of people. It's no surprise, of course, huge population, huge industry, factories, everything, like it's crazy out there. Next up is Czech Republic or Czechia at $880,000. This is one of the cheaper European countries. Like in Europe generally, when you go from the west of Europe or the UK, it's like the most expensive, and then moving towards the east it becomes a lot cheaper. Czechia is sort of like in the middle, and it is very affordable compared to like Italy and France and those places. And then we have Saudi Arabia at $740,000. The country with the richest royal family in the world. Mind you, Saudi Arabia is getting pretty expensive with all their huge projects going on and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if it moves much higher up this list in the coming years. And then we have Romania at $587,000. Again, a cheaper Eastern Eastern European country. Then we have Malaysia at 485,000, Brazil at 433,000, Mexico at 383,000, India at 175,000. While India has a similar situation to China, I feel like a lot of it is because their currency is so weak that you really don't need much money to live a comfortable lifestyle there. While China, I feel like it's still a bit more like developed and stuff than India. Then we have South Africa at 109. The last two, Philippines at $57,000. $57,000 can get you in the top 1% in the Philippines. And it's pretty known that the Philippines is like extremely cheap. Like you could probably buy like a villa there for the price of like an average car. And the Philippines does have some really nice beaches and stuff like that. So like really, if it doesn't work out, like you could really go there and have just live on a beach like how everyone's like stereotypical dream life is. You could do it in the Philippines, even if you didn't make it in life. And then we have Kenya at $20,000. Although I don't really know what you would do in Kenya, but $20,000. That's like a year's salary on minimum wage or something like that. So it's up to you. Would you rather live like a below average person in the US, for example, or live like a king in the Philippines? Because essentially this is what this list tells me. This list tells me that if you have, for example, $1 million net worth, which by the way, this includes like all your assets, your cash, your houses, property, car, whatever, everything. So this tells me that, for example, if you have a net worth of $1 million in any country where the top 1% is more than $1 million, you're gonna be pretty much like an average Joe or below average. Like having a net worth of $1 million in Switzerland or in Monaco, you're like the peasant there. But being worth $1 million in India, you could have like armed guards and whatever, like nice big house in a safe area. You could probably eat whatever you want, do whatever you want. So does it matter more to you to be living like right in the middle of Manhattan, or do you prefer to just have a comfortable life, to have like your own swimming pool, beach, sea view, all this nice stuff for the same amount of money? And then you could have money left over to go visit New York or wherever you were from, like whenever you need to. And the amount of money you'll spend in like a week there is probably how much you spend in like a year in the Philippines or whatever. So as the Nomad Capitalist says, go where you're treated best. And also, it doesn't always have to be an extreme that you're either in Monaco or you're in Kenya. The options that are in the middle, where the net worth is to be in the top 1%, is around $500,000, $1 million. These are pretty decent countries. Like Malaysia, it's not a bad country at all to live in or to visit or whatever. Like it's a nice country, it has nice buildings, nice roads, whatever. Okay, maybe it's not as amazing as Dubai or something, but then even Dubai, for example, everyone's well aware of the lifestyle there, and it's not very high up this list. So $1.6 million living comfortably in Dubai, it sounds like a pretty good deal. So if you had $1.6 million net worth, would you rather be like a below average person in the UK? Would you rather just be like an average person in the UK? Or would you rather be in the top 1% in Dubai? Having what's considered a good lifestyle in Dubai, or having what's considered an average lifestyle in the UK, which probably includes getting like mugged and stabbed and whatever. So it's up to you and whatever you prioritize. And that's all for this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.